You don't have to cut those. And there it is, all sewn up.
It's starting to look like a book.
Now Charleston, on the other hand, has a different way of doing it. My
Charleston
goodness, look at that.
is a Smythe sewing machine, another monstrosity.
When was that invented?
Oh, in the 1850s, I believe, given it a little kickstart. This one happens to be electric, although the older ones were steam powered.
Oh, he probably would have used steam.
He probably would have used steam. No. Now he's using it. He places the signature of the book on a platen, hits a treadle with his foot, and the book is sewn, left in place, sewn in gigantic blocks of more than one book, which will then be cut apart later.
Right.
He's finding the middle of the signature, putting it on the platen. It's pierced and sewn at the same time.
This looks like hard work, though.
Very hard work.
Cost-cutting work.
Cost-cutting work, incredibly fast compared to hand sewing.
Right. That's a good, nice picture of your old.
You can see the cams. There is a similarity, isn't there? Cutting off the threads, removing. You wouldn't just sew one book at a time. You can sew up to 30 or 40 books at a time, depending on how many signatures.
And there's no cords here.
No cords, no tapes, no anything.
Now,
trimming.
Now, we're looking in the 1780s at trimming. It's been unchanged for many centuries.
What's this piece of equipment
This is called a laying press. Sits in a tub.
Yeah.
Screw the book in. This is the foredge we're going to trim first. And it has a little piece of binder's board at the back of it to protect it. And what we're going to do is we're going to actually take this thing called a plough, which is sitting on the desk, which is essentially a sharpened blade, which is held together between these two pieces of wood with a screw. Yeah. And we're going to run it up and down in this gutter.
It's like another press.
It's another kind of press, yeah. And as you'll see, it shaves that little bit of the page off. And
you don't just cut the whole book block at once.
Oh no! Every time you do it, you turn in with the screw a little bit, and it moves the blade in.
So you're turning. You can see that you're turning the blade a little bit there.
Yeah. In and in and in, and then it's nicely trimmed.
Then you go all the way around the book.
It's very fast.
Would you do 1 or 2 books at a time?
Sometimes you could put 3 in, depending on the thickness, you know.
So the plough fits on a track on the laying press.
Yeah, absolutely. Then you have to do the other 2 sides. You know, you take it out and you turn it around. But that's essentially all there is to it.
And it makes a beautiful cut.
Oh, very smooth, very smooth.
Yeah. On the other hand.
Oh, this is good.
Charleston's guillotine here, which is the machine you saw in the background before, is a very large machine with a blade, a mechanically operated blade.
When was this machine invented,
1830s or 40s, I believe. You can see he's just cut the foredges of 2 books that were sewn earlier. There's a fence in the back that there's a gauge that's set. A clamp comes down to hold it, and the blade is engaged with a clutch.
Fabulous. Mind you, you don't want to get your fingers caught in it, do you?
Absolutely not.
Rounding and backing.
Bad accidents can happen.
Now, here we are. Before we round and back this book, you see those cords are very thick.
They're very thick cords.
So we fray them out. It's called fraying out the slips. And when they're nice and smooth, we just take a bookbinder's hammer, which is a slightly rounded hammer, and hit the book gently, very gently, both sides.
Now, what's the purpose of doing this
rounding? Well, the book has a huge swell at the spine, right? So that swell has to go somewhere.
Because of the fold and the thread.
Yeah, the fold and the thread makes the book thicker at the spine. So we put it into a round like that, so it will function better as a machine, because it is a machine.
Now you see again, you're going back into the laying press, which was really the all-purpose piece of equipment in the bindery.
We're putting it between these 2 angled or beveled backing boards. Yeah. We're going to hit it with the hammer again, and that puts a joint or a sort of shoulder on the book. It's that little edge where the board is going to sit.
Where the board will sit flush to. Now here, on the other hand, is a star backer or a rounder backer.
Gosh.
That will replace hammering a book. It's been slightly hammered, so it's a little bit round already. Charleston here is clamping the book. He'll put all his weight onto it.
Oh, I see the round there, yes.
You see the round there. He's going to roll this giant iron round roll over the book. And you can see that it does a pretty nice job.
That's a very heavy roller that's going on.
It's very heavy. This is the sort of ultimate Victorian piece of machinery.
I love that. I want
one. And he did a pretty good job there.
Yeah. He's a hard worker.
He works very hard.
Now, lacing on, of course, this is the board that's going to make the cover of the book, and we're punching holes in it, which you'll see why we're going to do that in a minute. We punch 2 sets of holes, and then we cut a small channel, which is also called a slip.
You're sort of excavating the board.
Excavating a little bit, and that's where the cord is going to sit. So it makes it nice and flat. And into those holes, we're going to actually rub some glue, or paste in this case, onto the slips, those pieces of cord that the book was sewn on. And they will then be laced into the board. And you'll see how this works. You see, they line up nicely. We get the paste.
So the board's attached to the book before...
It's attached at this stage.
Before covering.
Which is very different to your book, right,
yes.
that you showed us earlier. So we've rubbed some glue into there. And now we take those slips.
Yeah. Does your head get hot during this?
Because of the little cap I'm wearing?
Yeah.
Sometimes, yeah. We pull the little cords through. Although that isn't actually me. I know it looks like me.
Yeah.
That was my great-great ancestor.
Oh, that's right. There was such a similarity.
Yeah. And we're going to bash down those holes, and that will secure the book in place.
Now, headbanding.
To its boards. Now, this is all done with a needle and thread and a simple piece of cord. It's important to put chalk on your hands.
Yeah.
Very important.
Just like a gymnast.
Yes, or a snooker player, or a French chef. And then we're going to sew around the headband, 2 colours, red and white. Generally, they would use 2 colours.
So you're actually, this is being mechanically attached to the book
through yes. Sewing. You actually...
There's no glue involved.
Look, you're going down there, look.
Yeah.
You're going right the way through, below the kettle stitch.
Right. Below the kettle stitch.
Yeah, you don't have to, but it's always good. It's a psychological reassurance, I think, more than anything else. And then
using 2 colored threads.
2 colored threads. It's a round headband, and then when it's finished, you just tie off at the end. Bit of glue, but this is hot glue made from leftover bits of animals that our carnivorous friends don't eat, and then just glue it down, and then with the knife, the all-purpose paring knife, cut the...
Remove the ends.
Yeah, in the olden days, they used to be laced into the boards.
They would attach it to the boards.
This is more decorative than structural, and you cut it off. And there it is, beautiful, decorative, stripy headband.
Right. And we'll see in the 19th century a new kind of headband, because we were really moving into multiples.
They did away with the sewing.
They did away with the sewing because it was extremely time-consuming.
But you still have a striped piece of material there.
So here we see another cost-cutting mechanical device. Now, this striped material came from the binder's Oxford shirt.
Get out of here.
It's true.
Oh.
Which the binder probably paid for themselves.
What, in terms of...
yeah.
You mean they paid for with the accidents they had, and they paid for with their lives?
The bindery wasn't...
Oh, well, they actually bought them, right. I see.
Now, you can see I just wrapped a stiffened cord.
Oh, and there you see, he's made several headbands out of his shirt.
Yeah. Those were for different books.
Right.
Yeah, old Charleston had a lot of shirts. Now, lining the spine.
Oh, okay.
After we've attached the headband to the book, we take a piece of creche, mull. It's very much like a piece of cheesecloth.
Notice that Archibald didn't line his spine, by the way.
No, Archibald did not.
Because he didn't need to, because it was already strong.
It's already strong.
You put this on.
What Charleston is doing here is, since there is no attachment of boards, he is lining the spine of the book because it needs to have some strength, some compactness to make the book block, the text block, a single unit. Plus, he's creating, by putting this creche on here, he's creating a strong attachment for the cover when the cover is actually attached.
In England, we used to call
block.
We used to call that mull.
Yeah, they call it mull. It depends what coast you're from.
Right.
It's also called super.
Oh.
I think if you call it super if you're from Chicago.
Okay. Now he's glued it again.
He's glued it again, and he's going to attach a piece of craft paper just to add some stiffness and just so that the spine retains its shape as it
That's
opens
pink craft paper.
Pink craft paper.
Not
very, very 19th century.
Presumably not made to match the headband, which is also pink. That's just an accident, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because we're not going to see that. Now, covering, actually, for old Archibald back in the 1780s was a lengthy process. Covered in hide, leather. Yeah. This is actually a kip side, which is an adolescent calf skin.
Yeah.
We make a template.
What are you doing there? Making a template?
I'm marking it with a nice piece of chalk all the way around. Oh, he looks tired, doesn't he? Remembering those long days when he was languishing in jail, I think. All my family have been great revolutionaries. I have a great radical tradition that I come from. He's cutting it out with this big knife.
His paring knife.
My mother actually organised a revolution within the Women's Institute a few years ago. Now he's going to pare the edge here with his
paring
English paring knife, I have to say.
Yeah. Oh, that looks very hard.
Well, it's hard. It's tricky too. Yeah. You can lose a finger.
Now what's he doing?
Well, he's dyeing this now, and it's a vegetable dye, brown, number 2. There were only 4 colours of dye in those days.
You just brush it on with a piece of cloth? Huh?
Yeah, it's a rag, really.
Yeah.
Put it on with a rag, or a rag, as they say in Montana. And then lift it up to the light.
That's what Peter Koch would say.
He would, yeah. He's got such a hick accent, doesn't he?
Now what?
Now we're just pasting it out now, get it nice and wet.
It's just wheat starch paste.
That's right. It's boiled, you know.
Yeah.
When it's tacky, we put the book on it, wrap it down. Now you see, it's not covering the whole book.
Yeah.
This is called a half binding. The rest of the
by
book.
this time the leather is quite supple and easy to work
Oh, it's
with.
wonderful. We're forming it round the spine. We want to take all the shape and the impressions of those raised bands that we sewed it on. The rest of this board will be covered in marble paper or plain paper, by the way.
Now
you're turning it in down the spine, and when it's closed, we wrap it up.
With cords.
And this cord that goes around pinches each one of those bands on the back and emphasizes them.
Didn't his sleeves get in the way when he was working?
Oh, sometimes.
Charleston, on the other hand, is making what's called a cloth case. He's setting his board cutter up to cut boards, which have not been attached to the book block yet. So now is the time that he would do that.
Oh, okay.
Cutting the panels out.
Now this is really quick. The boards, by the way, Archibald would not have used one of these. He would have cut his boards in the plough.
Yes,
the same place where
he trimmed his the book block. And this is all about multiples. Here's a piece of book cloth, a starch.
Now, tell me about book cloth.
It's a starch-filled linen that was generally coated on the facing side for making it easy to stamp and to make it pleasing.
But this wasn't around in Archibald's day. This was.
Oh no. This was came around into wide use in the 1830s and 40s, and it really became the prime. A lot stronger than paper.
So it was an alternative. It was better than paper, but it was an alternative to leather.
Yes.
It was easy to treat.
And they had to invent new methods to use it. Because in ways it was a lot harder.
So they got it from the textile industry, I presume.
Yeah, and they made some improvements to it that made it easier to work for books.
Right.
Particularly so that it could accept stamping and adhesive.
Stamping is the gold tooling onto it, right?
That's right, the embossing.
Now he's making what?
What Charleston is doing is making the case. He's using a gauge there so that the spine size is always uniform, which is very important.
Oh, okay.
Putting the two panels down.
So this is very
fast.
This is like production line stuff, isn't it?
This is production. You would do hundreds of these at a time.
Right.
Putting the spine piece down.
To reinforce that.
And you can see that all his movements are very economical. Just goes like that. You can tell he's done it millions and millions of times.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
He's fast.
He's very fast. Now he's going to use a simple turning in tool. Hand tools were still quite common in the, addition bindery, but they were just aided. There was certain steps that were aided by mechanical machines.
But you're still using, he's still using his hands, right? I mean,
he's still using, it's hand
This
work.
is not all like factory machine production.
No, that's the common misconception, is that factory work was unskilled.
Well, I certainly thought that until now.
Yeah.
Was I labouring under a misconception, was I?
I think you were labouring under a very large misconception.
Well, thank you for putting me right.
Well, thank
Charleston. Looks like a book.
Now, tooling, on the other hand, Archibald is...
oh, let me tell you about him, because I'm very proud of him. This is real gold leaf, and it's in a little book, and he's lifting it out. You can't sneeze when you're doing it. Oh, you can't even blow. Look at that. Yeah. You've got to blow to get it onto the pad.
Now, what is that pad that he's putting
It's made of suede. It's the other side of leather.
It holds the...
That's a gold knife, special gold knife, special shape.
You can't touch that with your hand.
No. You can eat gold leaf. Did you know that?
I didn't.
It's very good for you. In fact, I think Archibald used to have a bit of a taste for it. That's probably why he died early. He got gold poisoning. Now, you pick it up with a bit of cotton, and you can put it onto the back of the spine. And then you go in with a tool.
Yeah, in his hand he has a hot tool.
Hot tool. There's an adhesive underneath there, which is glare, which is made from egg white and vinegar.
You've treated the book with the egg white and vinegar before you put the gold.
And that acts as a kind of adhesive, which will stick the heat, activates the gold onto the adhesive.
That's right.
Just a simple center tool. The rest of the gold,
we call that.
Yeah, that's a 19th century term, though, isn't it? I'd call that a center tool, rosette.
Now, on the other hand, this is another one of the big inventions of the 19th century.
What is this?
It's a blocking press or a foil stamping machine.
When's that from?
1830s as well, around the same time as the guillotine. What Charleston is doing there is he has a composite foil. It's made out of aluminum, probably, with a heat-sensitive adhesive on the back of it. Not dissimilar to the gold standard.
But it's not real gold.
No, it's not, although you can use
I think they used to originally, didn't they?
And you can see it's heated up. There's a thermometer on there. It's up to about 250 degrees.
And you just go in like that.
That's just all there is to it. You can see once again that this is really for multiple.
And mass production. And you can throw away the ones you waste, right?
Yeah.
Which is a good,
5% over as you always feel.
Right.
Now pressing.
What's Archibald doing? He's just putting it straight in the press. I think
it's covered.
I think he's pasted out the end paper, but the cover was already attached, so he doesn't need to do much pressing.
No.
Just close the book generally with a bit of glue in there.
Just to give it a little consolidation, but there's not very much pressure.
But on the other hand, Charleston, my goodness.
What he's doing now is he's going to wed